Hey peeps, last week there was a lot going on politically. And as I was laying around this morning, I ended up over there on Raw Story. I like Raw Story. Raw Story gives me the gist of what's going on with a particular story without a lot of the news fluff, right? So I like Raw Story for that reason, and I also like the Associated Press for that very reason. Now, some of the stories over on the Associated Press can get lengthy, but for the most part, they just give me the gist of what's going on without all of the extra fluff. So I'm laying around this morning and reading news stories, and I'm like, there's quite a few things that took place last week that wasn't a part of the news cycle, wasn't a part of viral news. And I picked out a few that I think that you should know about. So let's get into it. So if you didn't know, last week Donald Trump did a sort of campaign rally type stop at some small venue in Pennsylvania last week. I think there were about 200 people. I think the Midas Touch reported on it and said it was about 200 people in attendance. Much, much smaller than what he's used to. But it was a test. Behind the scenes, what they weren't reporting, it was a test to see how Donald Trump will do if he were to go out and do campaign rallies, because we know that the midterms are coming up and Donald Trump is going to be needed to campaign for some of these Republicans who are running for office in the House and in the Senate. So that was a test. Needless to say, Donald Trump failed. He failed. And Republicans are nervous about that. Here's what Raw Story is reporting. Bulwark editor Jonathan Last and former Republican and Bulwark publisher Sarah Longwell say Republicans are wheeling President Donald Trump out early to visit Pennsylvania and other states to sell his economic policy because time is running out on his waning charisma. But moving on, quote, "We need to talk about Trump's age and what it means for the next 3 years," said Last, pointing out that the president's hair is really thinning. I could give a flying fuck about Donald Trump's hair. I'm focused on what is coming out of his mouth. I'm focused on his actions. I don't care anything about his charisma or his thinning hair. But moving on. And nobody's yet figured out how to get bronzer on his albino white scalp. End quote. Now, I'm sure this quote was meant to be funny, but I ain't laughing at what is happening with Donald Trump and what he is doing to our country. I'm not laughing at the shenanigans of the Trump administration, the regime. I'm not laughing at what it is that they are doing to the United States citizens and this country. But yeah, Longwell said Trump's rapidly declining health and lucidity are going to deal a blow to the Republican Party as the nation gears up for the midterms amid Trump's unpopular economic policies. What exactly is Donald Trump's economic policy? The only thing I hear Donald Trump talking about is tariffs, and we know tariffs have been a disaster for this country. We know that he and the Republicans have passed a bill, the big, beautiful bill, that has done nothing but terrorize the American citizens. It has done nothing to improve the everyday lives of the citizens. It has taken funding from social programs and has increased funding for other programs like ICE. What other economic programs does Republicans and Donald Trump have? Quote, as he goes into these states, he starts talking like a crazy person about the affordability scam and pencils. He doesn't even sound that good. The idea of putting him on the trail, the campaign trail, the idea of putting him on the trail, the reason they're doing it now is because he's declining. They're trying to get him out there early, and voters are so done with these old candidate tactics. I know I am. End quote. I know I am. I'm sick of the Republicans. I'm sick of Donald Trump. I'm sick of their policies or lack thereof. I'm sick of the lies. I'm sick of the gaslighting. I'm sick of seeing them enrich themselves while the rest of us are left to pick up the pieces and suffer. Moving on, quote, the only way Trump got away with his age was because he was not as old as Biden. You could tell they were roughly the same age, but Trump had big lunatic energy still. That is falling. That is failing. That is going away. Now he's doing this thing where he's waking up in the middle of the night and ripping off 150 Truth Social posts at 3 a.m. and falling asleep while Marco Rubio is talking. And it's happening a lot where he's napping in the day, end quote. Last said, what will be obvious to voters over the next 3 years is that the U.S. won't really have a president, just a ceremonial head of state, with Stephen Miller trying to get what he can, Marco Rubio trying to get what he can, and J.D. Vance trying to put himself in a position to hold everything together while also trying to figure out if there's a way to knife the old man. That's a direct quote. Longwell said Democrats should spend the next year not only thrashing Trump on his economy, but also on his declining health. Absolutely. And I have been seeing Democrats do that. I have been seeing Hakeem Jeffries talk about the economic policy or lack thereof. I've been seeing other Democrats out there talking about Donald Trump and his declining health. So they are doing that as the campaigning amps up. Quote, hammering him on his age and the fact that he's not in control matter a great deal because people hate Stephen Miller. They're mid on J.D. Vance. There is nobody in the Republican ecosystem that can hold together this wild coalition other than Trump. The red hat is the biggest tent there is, end quote. And Donald Trump isn't doing very well in holding this coalition together. Look at Candace Owens. She's speaking out against Donald Trump now. Look at Nick Fuentes. He's speaking out against Donald Trump. Tucker Carlson is speaking out against Donald Trump. Republicans are coming together to go against Donald Trump. Look at what the state of Indiana did yesterday or the day before. Donald Trump and the regime were threatening those Republicans in the state of Indiana. If you don't do this, if you don't do that, then this will happen and that will happen. The federal government won't fund this, they won't fund that. They even had the Heritage Foundation, who is an extended arm. I won't even say an extended arm. The Heritage Foundation is a part of Donald Trump's regime. They even tried to threaten those Republicans out in Indiana. And those Republicans said, fuck you. We are not voting to gerrymander our maps any further. And there are now some Republicans in the House and in the Senate that are willing to go against Donald Trump. Look at Marjorie Taylor Greene. Look at Thomas Massie. There are others who are speaking out against Mike Johnson, which indirectly means you're speaking out against Donald Trump. Look at Elise Stefanik. She's been burned a few times by Donald Trump. She's straddling the fence, though. You know, she's put her hat in the ring to run for governor of New York, but she sees the writing on the wall. New Yorkers don't want her. So she's the other side of the fence that she's straddling. She's going after Mike Johnson because she's eyeing the speakership for herself. And there are other Republicans in the House that are saying, we sick of this shit. We don't want to be an extension. We don't want to be do boys and do girls for Donald Trump. We want to do our job. We want to do what our constituents voted for us to do. And so, in order to do that, they're willing to resign their positions in the House. Yeah, it's going to be interesting because who are they going to put on the campaign trail? Because Donald Trump, he doesn't understand affordability. He's stuck on affordability is a scam. It's a Democrat hoax. That's what he said at their Pennsylvania test campaign rally. That's what I call it. That's what I call it. That's what it looked like to me. Anywho, y'all let me know your thoughts on this. Yeah, there's more to talk about. Donald Trump and his regime, they know that they are breaking the law. And they are doing it because they believe that they will be pardoned by Donald Trump. And that's exactly what's being discussed now behind the scenes with the regime. I found this article also on Raw Story. President Donald Trump has already discussed the idea of preemptively pardoning key aides and officials who could face criminal investigations under a future Democratic administration. That would be Kristi Noem. That would be Pete Hegseth. That would be Marco Rubio. Yeah, these three individuals are at the top of my list that I've been watching breaking the law, violating the Constitution. And they are doing it without impunity. They are doing it as if they won't face any type of consequences. So there has to be discussions about pardons going on behind the scenes, especially with Pete Hegseth and Kristi Noem. Sources with knowledge of the discussion say the conversations have been sporadic and preliminary and have included Trump, his senior aides, federal appointees, and Republicans close to the White House. Any sweeping preemptive pardon, the sources told Zeteo, would likely occur shortly before the inauguration of a Democratic president-elect, though it is unclear how long the potential presidential list might run. That's going to be a long list. Stephen Miller is also at the top of the list because all that is going on with ICE, yeah, that stems from Stephen Miller. Among the names reportedly under consideration is Stephen Miller, Trump's policy architect, widely associated with the administration's most controversial and critics argue openly, gratuitously lawless initiatives. Another MAGA administration figure discussed in the reporting is Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, currently under scrutiny for possible war crimes related to a series of U.S. military boat strikes in Venezuela and facing judicial contempt inquiries. Quote, some of these intra-administration discussions were sparked, sources say, after certain Democrats publicly suggested that the Supreme Court gifted Trump with broad presidential immunity, but that his underlings were not shielded from accountability, end quote. I mean, it didn't really have to be a discussion solely amongst Democrats. The rest of us were clear. Those of us who have critical thinking skills, those of us who can separate ourselves from the political pack, we can look at all that was going on and realize that broad immunity was only given to Donald Trump and not to the people in his regime. Quote, they're not always going to be in office. This is what Governor Pritzker said. referring to the potential for legal consequences for administrative officials. He added, quote, "The people who serve the president, including all the way down to ICE agents, can be held accountable when there's a change of administration," end quote. Yes, ICE agents included. Yeah, they out there running amok. They are out there breaking the law. They are out there harassing United States citizens as if they won't be held accountable. They will and can be held accountable. Donald Trump won't be in office forever. And there is a possibility, if Democrats are to take the House and then the Senate as a result of the 2026 midterms, impeachment can happen for Donald Trump. I'm here for it. Alex Jones is pissed. One of Donald Trump's biggest supporters, conspiracy theorist Alex Jones, is pissed. Those new photographs that dropped on yesterday, yeah, they got Alex Jones feeling a certain kind of way. Here's what Raw Story is reporting. Conspiracy theorist Alex Jones revealed that he was insanely angry following the release of new Jeffrey Epstein photos that included President Donald Trump. Now, I just don't get it, Alex Jones. How do you not know? There were photographs already out there of Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. How is it that the release of more photographs of Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein, is that what made you realize that there is a huge possibility Donald Trump is in the Epstein files and that he was a part of the whole thing? Anywho, quote, "One of the things that sent me into a rage is that I knew exactly what they would do with Epstein," Jones said on Friday after the photos were released. Quote, "I predicted what Trump and the CIA would do for national security, covering it up," end quote. They have now released less than 20 images from over 90,000, and they have edited the image to make it look like Trump is a P3DO. "I am just insanely angry right now," end quote. So he's still straddling the fence. He's straddling the fence. He thinks Donald Trump is covering it up, but yet he's seeing all of these photographs with Donald Trump in them, along with Jeffrey Epstein. He's insanely angry. Quote, "The Democrats get from the Epstein estate 90 plus thousand files, and they release less than 20. Just so you know, they released a lot more yesterday evening. They're going through them. They've already gone through 25,000. They're choosing the ones that can be redacted, easily redacted, to put out to the public. They're trying to protect victims." Quote, "The Democrats get from the Epstein estate 90 plus thousand files, and they release less than 20 photos, and it's Trump in public places at public events, and it's shots of beauty contestants with their faces covered up, and the message there is these are victims. These are underage girls when they're not," end quote. Alex Jones. It's something special about Alex Jones. Like, he's special as in touched in the head. That elevator does not go all the way up to the top floor. He's upset because he's battling within himself. He doesn't want to believe what he's seeing. He doesn't want to come to that realization, but he knows. Jones insisted that women pictured with Trump are obviously in their 20s. Quote, "I mean, the supposed response and the posture of the White House on this whole thing has been the dumbest handling ever. Trump was in and around as a socialite, where that guy was in Florida, New York, with the elites of the elites," end quote. Alex Jones, If Jeffrey Epstein was with the elites of the elites and Donald Trump was with Jeffrey Epstein, then how can you not determine that Donald Trump was of the elites with the elites when he was a multi-millionaire? Quote, and I said Trump needs to just go ahead and expose all of this and do the right thing and just burn down the establishment. And your base is not like Democrats. They will not put up with that, and it will hurt you big time in the base, and we'll lose the midterm. End quote. So he still thinks there is hope for Republicans in the midterms. He still believes that the base is holding on with Donald Trump because he's the hero of, in their mind, he's their hero. He's going to be the one that's going to expose the deep state, when Donald Trump is the deep state. Quote, all of this is what Alex Jones has said out there in a video. I can't play the video. Shout out to Raw Story for writing it all down for me. I can't play the video because when I play the video, I can upload the video over onto YouTube, but YouTube will suppress the video. That algorithm ain't fooling with Alex Jones. And I can't upload the video over on TikTok at all. That video will get struck down. I tried it once. It didn't go well for me. So a lot of these social media platforms aren't fooling with Alex Jones. Quote, FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino knows this was ridiculous. They say there are no extra Epstein files and Epstein acted alone and he killed himself. The Easter Bunny is real, end quote. These are quote. All of these quotes are from Alex Jones and what he put out there in a video. Where the video is, I don't know. I didn't go looking for it. I saw the article and I was like, oh, this is perfect. I can talk about Alex Jones and not include his voice in my video. I can quote what he says because these platforms, they're not very welcoming to Alex Jones. And so Alex Jones is just a representation of some of the diehard MAGA nut fans. They're holding on by a thread. Remember this guy? Do you remember this guy? Brian, I forget his last name, Jr. They arrested this guy, said that Brian Cole, I'll put it across the screen. They arrested this guy, said that he admitted to it. He admitted to being the January 6th pipe bomber. I did a video. I said, I don't believe it. I don't believe anything coming out of this regime. Right? Remember the video I did? A whole bunch of y'all were in agreement with me. Right? And so there was a lot of people out there saying not everything is fake. Not everything is a lie. And they're entitled to that opinion. But I was sticking with my opinion. And my opinion was, this is a bunch of bullshit. I don't believe it. And now, who's coming out to say this is a bunch of bullshit? Representative Thomas Massey is coming out to say this is a bunch of bullshit. This is what Raw Story is reporting. Representative Thomas Massey claimed the FBI arrested the wrong person in the January 6th pipe bomb case. The Kentucky Republican and frequent foe of President Donald Trump claimed Friday afternoon on X that an FBI whistleblower approached him to claim that suspect Brian Cole Jr. couldn't possibly have planted pipe bombs in early 2021 at the headquarters for the Republican National Committee and the Democrat National Committee. Quote, this is the third disclosure I've received from current and former employees of the government regarding the pipe bomb case in recent weeks, Massey posted. These brave, moral people could lose their jobs and wreck their careers, but they care deeply for our country. So at the risk of editorializing, I will summarize what I learned from this newest disclosure in order not to disclose the identity of these whistleblowers. The 30-year-old Cole lives in a community where several employees of the FBI, Secret Service, and police also reside, and the whistleblower said they must have seen him on one of his frequent walks around the area. Quote, he wanders around his neighborhood several times a day while walking his dog. Other than walking his dog, he doesn't engage in any other activities outside his home. He does not interact with anyone. He doesn't wave or acknowledge others or even say hello. He does not even look at other people when he walks by. He appears to live in his own world. End quote. Now, the rumor is a lot of people are talking, saying that what were they saying he deals with? He's neurodivergent, I believe they said that he deals with, or I forget the other term that they use, but yeah. So he's not as sociable as everybody else would be out there. Hell, I'm not as sociable as everybody else would be. Quote, he's never been observed walking around in any angry or agitated state. Quote, his demeanor is detached and vacant. End quote. Now, reminder, this is information that a whistleblower sent to Representative Thomas Massey. He put all of this out there. He did a thread over there on Twitter. I saw the thread. Y'all can go over there and check it out. Cole always wears headphones while walking around the neighborhood, the whistleblower told Massey, who speculated he wore those to drown out surrounding noise and did not appear interested in anything happening around him. Quote, his behavior is awkward. It's obvious he has a mental disability and likely lives in a permanently vulnerable intellectual and emotional state. It's well known that individuals with mental conditions are susceptible to providing inaccurate and unwarranted confessions. End quote. Based on the observations of several neighbors, the suspect does not appear to have the mental acumen to plan, prepare, and execute a complex bombing plot by himself. That is a direct quote from one of the whistleblower that reached out to Representative Thomas Massey. The FBI conducted a surveillance operation November 13th on Coles Street that many readily noticed, Massey said, and the whistleblower raised questions about how his December 4th arrest was carried out. Quote, not only were neighbors not evacuated during the arrest and search of the alleged bomber's home, they were required to remain in their homes. If the suspect had in fact been engaged in making bombs and stockpiling bomb materials, the proper safety precautions were not taken. End quote. Quote, my personal conclusion, this is Representative Thomas Massey, the FBI employee disclosing this information to me doesn't believe the FBI has arrested a person who is capable or motivated or even interested enough in affairs outside of his own small world to execute the January 6th pipe bomb plot on his own. End quote. I don't believe that this man did anything. This man is a scapegoat. This man was used to direct attention away from Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump being called war criminals. After what they did to a fishing boat off the coast of Venezuela. The double attack that they did. That's what this is, in my opinion. Listen, that's all I got for this episode. Thank y'all for tuning in. If you have made it this far, please make sure that you are subscribed to the channel. I am trying to get to 500,000 subscribers. So make sure that you are subscribed. If you are not subscribed, do me that solid and hit that subscribe button. Republicans doing what Republicans do. Lie, gaslight, and just are continuing to traumatize us American citizens to enrich themselves.